She was married for over 40 years, and
Who was married for over 30?
a lady that I know.
Mm.
Well, a friend of mine told me about her, but I didn't know that was her situation. And her husband has never seen her nakedness. She turns off the lights when they're sleeping or when they're making love. So he's never seen her nakedness, as in the lights are always off. He said,
The lights are always off.
Off, yeah. So he's never seen her nakedness.
So is that upbringing or what? Or what?
It's a mindset. And it will be related to upbringing as well. Because at the end of the day, if sex is private, it's a very private thing as well, in the sense that it's not what you're meant to be doing, with group of people, or but some have been brought up that this is something you do in the dark. It's dirty in some people's eyes. Some people it's only for procreation. So let's get the procreation done and lights off.
And that's it.
And that's it. So over 40 years, clearly, I can't even judge it, because the fact that they've been together for 40 years, it says a lot. But whether they're experiencing the fullness of the marriage, I can't comment, because some people
it seems to be working for them.
Well, on the outside, yes. And the fact that they've been together, I think it shows something about commitment. Wow. Because sometimes some people
How did you get to know?
Oh, a mutual friend was sharing with me that she shared it in a platform that when the topic came up, and she was shocked that people were bold and brazen about these kind of topics, and that was how it came up. So it made me to realize that, this idea of enjoying sex outside of procreation is a taboo. It's a taboo, and it's something that it will be interesting to hear women and men's perspective on it. And for me, my own personal journey, I would say that it was not something that was discussed. My parents didn't sit down and discuss with it. In fact, for most of us, when I was growing up, it was like, just close your legs, don't entertain any, it's almost like you can get pregnant by just being in a company of men. So you kind of had to, from the biology that we did, we realized that, well, it's not quite like that. And it was often a taboo as well to have sex. It was a taboo. I mean, I remember certainly when I was younger, the first thing I was confused about was that most of the brides that I saw when I was younger were pregnant. So I remember asking my mom, that do you have to be pregnant to get married? And that impacted the whole procreation aspect of sex, because I now got to understand that was kind of like the test of productivity. So in some of our African cultures, that if you were not yet pregnant, then they're not sure whether you can have children. So it's kind of like conflicts with, obviously, this notion of no sex before marriage. Do you see? But it was acceptable in some circles.
I was coming to that. Okay, what in growing up, our parents obviously didn't talk sex. No. There was no such thing as sex education. What kind of so would you suggest that, or do you think it's a good idea to talk sex with our children, and how do we go about it?
I think it would be good if we could. But before we can, we also have to get over our own challenges with it. Do you understand? So I'm throwing it back to you. What would you have liked your parents to do for you? Because sometimes
very good question.
It's one that before you can give it, you can't give what you don't have.
Very, very good question.
And so, how would you have liked to have received sex education?
Personally, I would. And I think at home, because I had liberal parents, I had a liberal father and a liberal mother, where anything could be talked about. But for some reason, sex wasn't, we didn't particularly talk about sex, but we talked about, relationships.
Yes.
So how would I have loved my parents to discuss sex with me is how I'm discussing sex with my children at the moment.
Okay.
I haven't made it like, for instance, I tell my boys we discuss using condoms, the importance of condoms, for instance, and how there's a difference between being a father and being a daddy. Being a father, anybody can have sex, and it could result to having children, having a child, and the relationship may not work, and then you become an absent father.
Yes.
But if you are present in the relationship, you become a daddy. So for me, that's the difference. And I always tell my boys that there are consequences to having children and not being present. I am a living example of that. I'm still in the process of developing a relationship with my daughter.
Okay, is that from a previous relationship?
That's from a previous relationship.
Okay.
And it's been tough going. Extremely tough going for me. And that's a subject for another matter. But what I'm trying to say is that there is always a consequence.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that my daughter is a consequence, because one doesn't go into a relationship believing that it's not going to work out.
Yes.
But it just didn't work out between the mother of my daughter.
Yes.
And myself. And I'm not going to blame the mother of my daughter. It's a combination of both. Both of us along the line made mistakes. So one, and it doesn't necessarily mean that before you enter into a relationship it has to be perfect as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm coming from a different background, my partner's coming from a different background, and we just have to make it work. We have to, have, it's having this kind of discussion we're talking about. How do you see sex, your children?
What role the sex play? I think for me, just listening to what you're saying, it's like having sex in its right place.
Yeah.
It should not, in my opinion, be something that you enter into casually, because it has great consequences. And you hear quite a lot now, especially this notion of freedom of expression and all of that. You hear, they talk about casual sex, as if it can be casual. There's nothing casual about it. You've just shared about the consequences of even being in a relationship that was the
intention was good.
There was a marriage, a commitment that was meant to be for life. So there is a place for sex. I mean, there's a place for sex that you can work on. But when it's casual, it makes it even more complicated. So some of the things that we're talking about people's taboo around it, we talked about it in previous talks about it being like food.
Yeah, sex is food, is a language.
And all those things are done in a supportive environment, because even if you go for a good meal, you don't it's not like McDonald's. And I've got nothing against McDonald's, by the way. But what I meant is like a fast food restaurant thing. Just giving McDonald's as an example of a fast food. It's not like a fast food. It's something that, it's slow. It's something you relish. It's like when you go for a good meal, you think about what you want on the menu. You pick different aspects of the menu. You imagine how you put it together. That is my analogy of what making love. Some people say, well, actually making love is different because it is an expression. It's like you are cooking. And so that concept is what is sometimes missing for people. It's not seen like that. It's seen like, especially for some women, it's like, let's just get it over and done with. It's something I have to do.
It's a duty.
Yes. So it'd be interesting from your perspective as a man. How is sex for you? Is it something that you relish? Is it something you are getting enough of, or you wish you had more? Because also I appreciate that in my own relationship, my husband always wants more than I think. I said, you are too hungry.
I think men, could it be a gender thing? And men mostly is it insatiable when it comes to?
Well, that's for you to answer, because I'm going to talk from a woman's perspective.
Yeah, from my perspective,